This is the Little Moments Count radio podcast, created in partnership with community radio stations throughout Minnesota. Each episode, you'll hear interviews with early childhood experts on how to support the important brain development that takes place in the first 1,000 days of life, just through little moments every day. Learn more at littlemomentscount.org/podcast.
It's a good day to be Indigenous.
Get up, stand up.
They are going to become more brutal.
Because all the hippies were trying to be Indians anyway.
They're going to become more repressive because it's a matter of dollars and their illusionary concepts of power.
Hey, Victor.
We must live in balance with the earth.
And also with recent happenings at Wounded Knee.
I am awake. Welcome to Native Roots Radio presents I'm Awake, and I'm your host, Wakanja Hade. Hey, Kadagi to all my friends and relatives in four directions. You are listening to Native Roots Radio presents I'm Awake, and I'm your host, Robert Pilot. Hey, we discuss local, national, Native news and events, and as you know, Native issues are human issues, and human issues are Native issues. Hey, on today's show, we're going to have a Little Moments Count, and we're going to welcome Nicholas DeShaw, educator, former physical education teacher, author, and aspiring Ojibwe language speaker, bringing important insight on early childhood and community connections. Also, we're going to have joining us later in the show, Francisca Hung, a second-generation Wisconsinite chef and state representative from Madison, and who's made history as the first Asian-American member of Wisconsin legislature and is now running for governor. And I just want to really excited about that, but we're also really excited. This episode of Native Roots Radio is presented in partnership with Minneapolis Public Radio and Little Moments Count. Little Moments Count is a statewide collaboration focused on helping parents and caregivers learn about the importance of brain development in the first 3 years of life. You know, and I just want to bring our guest on right now, and I just say for more information, you can visit littlemomentscount.org. Hey, welcome to the show. Please introduce yourself in a good way.
Chimigwet Robert. Abojo Ginoa. Nin Sabemba to Mish Jim Indigo. Magizin do Dame. Sabiko days a Gaiganing went to Powwow and Danoe Magadag. Pachigo Miguecho ain't on GPS. I am on my Nomgom. Okay. So, hi everyone. My name is Nicholas DeShaw. Bimba to Mishtadim. I'm Bois Forte Ojibwe descendant. And, from Net Lake. That's where my family comes from. And very thankful and excited to be here today.
Right on. I'm excited to have you, too. I've been looking at your, I guess your bio, and it's really exciting to talk about all these things. I'm a former high school teacher, and we are having our second round of kids in the sense of we have our grandchildren who are going to be 20 months old here very soon. So, yeah. That's beautiful. It is. It really is. And, you know, you've spent many years in education, also as a father. How do you see reading impact a child's sense of identity and confidence?
Yeah, I think reading is just huge. Like, it really helps children to think abstractly, but when they're pre-literate, you know, when we're working with our littles, like your small grandchildren, reading to them is such an important way that they connect to parents. It allows them to hear their parents' voices. It allows them to hear that rhythm, and it brings parents close to them too. They get to have an experience together. A lot of times children see their parents just doing things, and they're it's just happening to them. But reading is a time when they're doing something together, and it's happening to both of them at the same time. They're participating together. So reading for children, even young children, even children who can't talk really yet, is just really, really valuable and so important. So I've been reading to my children since they were pre-verbal. One of them still is, and I really value that. And it's some of the most special times we've had is in our story times together. And make sure to make that a daily part of what we do.
Yeah, that's totally awesome. Hey, your book, Loaf the Cat Goes to a Powwow, centers around Indigenous culture and joyful, everyday way. Talk a little bit about that and talk about why you wrote this book.
Yeah, so I'm really glad you're asking me that. That was a huge motivation for me, the joyful centering of Native culture. a lot of times what I saw in my years of teaching was when it would come to subject matter related to Native people, it usually was set in the past. And that just bothered me because we're here today. We're doing very important things in our communities, and we're important contributors to the places where we live. So I wanted to have a story that was approachable, that would be a little sampling of a small part of contemporary Native cultures. And I thought, well, what better than powwow? You know, it's such a big part of Native cultural expressions today. But I also thought that would be a good way to introduce contemporary Native cultures because it's a very accessible cultural expression for non-Native people. So in the story, we follow our main character, who's a cat named Loaf, and we're seeing kind of her learn about what powwow is and how it works. And at the same time, her little boy is dancing for the first time. He's going to be a grass dancer. So we're all seeing from his perspective something he's familiar with, but now is old enough to participate in. So the idea was that a non-Native student or child could learn about Native culture, but a Native student or child could see themselves also in this story. So wanting to find a way that could bridge multiple perspectives, but in a way that's cute and fun and really approachable for anyone of any age.
Wow. Who did the artwork? Or is it a kind of a kid's book?
Yeah, the artwork was done by Tara Audibert, who's a really talented Indigenous illustrator of Canada. She also did the Jojo McCoon's book series, which are also another favorite in my home. But yeah, she's an incredibly talented illustrator. I was really grateful that she signed on to do this project. The way she brought things together was just so beautiful, so much better than I would have come up with. So I was glad with how she was able to bring Loaf to life.
Loaf to life. Hey, where can people get this book?
Yeah, so this book's available kind of wherever books are sold, but you can get it on Penguin Random House's website. You can order it just on Amazon even if you want. But one thing I always try to plug is our local bookstores, and I really like to plug Birch Bark Books. I've partnered with them a few times, so definitely head over to Birch Bark Books, get a copy over there.
Awesome. Hey, so, many indigenous communities have experienced, generations of culture and language erasure. How does storytelling really, especially for children, play a role in reclaiming who we are in our own history?
Yeah. Storytelling, I mean, I think any Native person will tell you is like one of the just foundational parts of Indigenous cultures. We tell stories, and we tell traditional stories. We tell modern stories. We gossip sometimes even. But if we're looking at the traditional storytelling art form, it's so critical because it gives us a view into another world. Sometimes a supernatural world, sometimes a historical world, but it allows us to understand values that we have always had in our communities as well. And one thing I love about the way those values are taught is through trickster stories, and that a lot of times we see those values communicated in ways of like someone not living them and doing the exact opposite of what you should do and having consequences for that. So I think for children, that's just a great way of like remembering those values, but also in a fun and sometimes funny way that's going to stick with you. Stories stick with you better than just like axioms or something. Like if I were to say like, it's important to maintain a clean house, like that doesn't mean anything to a kid. But if you tell a story of someone who doesn't clean up the room and then can't find something and then everything is all stinky all the time, that becomes really funny and fun. And then they can remember, oh yeah, hey, maybe I don't want that. Maybe that's why this is important to do in my own home. So those stories are just so critical of teaching a lot of who we are, expressing our values, and giving an important snapshot into all aspects or all parts of our history as well.
Yeah, exactly. I believe sometimes, with our stories, especially like whistling at night and bringing in, the spirits. I don't do that. We don't want our children or our grandchildren to do that. But I kind of wonder too, is that a story given so people would not be captured at night by bad people, And so there's always stories that have something to do with something.
it's funny you bring up the whistling at night. That's something I taught my son from the time he could talk. And sometimes, like, I just absentmindedly whistle when I'm just doing something. And he'd like, Daddy, it's dark. Stop whistling. And I'm like, oh, you're right, buddy. Sorry, my bad. I just wasn't thinking.
That's right. Hey, this is a Little Moments Count show, and we are here with Nicholas DeShaw, and we're going to take a quick break. This is Native Roots Radio. Welcome back to Native Roots Radio presents I'm Awake, and this is Robert Pilot. Hey, welcome back, everyone. This is Robert Pilot and Native Roots Radio, and this is a show we're sponsored by Little Moments Count, and we're welcoming Nicholas DeShaw here, educator, former physical education teacher, author, and aspiring Ojibwe language speaker. And that's one of the things I kind of wanted to touch base with, too, on you. I know really happy being, a baby elder here at 64 years old, almost 65, that, I've seen the last couple generations really jump back into the language and in our ways. And so it's been really, really inspiring to see. And, it's inspiring. You're an aspiring Ojibwe speaker. Can you talk about the importance of language for your children and what happens when kids are able to hear their own language and really, their brains really working a lot if they're doing two languages at once at such a young age?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, bringing multiple languages into the home is always a good thing. And it's just been proven over and over again to be positive for children's development and just their mental abilities. For me, it was really critical because I didn't know that there was an Ojibwe language until I was 15. We always talk about we'd say Chippewa back then, back in the 90s. But that was something we knew about, but no one in my family really mentioned the language, and I discovered it through a high school social studies project, and that just completely changed my world. And so I moved here to Minnesota from Michigan, where I grew up, to try to learn the language as best I could, and went to school for American Indian Studies, emphasized in Ojibwe language, did a lot of immersion work, and just really tried my best to get as good at the language as I could. And so when it came time for me to be a father, I was like, okay, my children now are going to have a lot more opportunity than I had for language. They're going to know, not only there is an Ojibwe language, but they're going to be hearing it in the home every day. And so I use Ojibwe with them every single day. And I'm certainly still learning. There's a lot more I would really love to be able to do. But just earlier today, I said to my son, "Oh, Misha Shinka Babagi Wayan." And he's like, "Oh, here you go." I said, give me your shirt quick." And he knew exactly what I was saying. And that really just is so edifying as a parent and as someone who, I'm coming from a family who, I think like a lot of Native families, we were separated from that part of our culture, from that part of who we were. And now it's a normal thing for my children. So that's just really powerful. And I've seen it really develop in my son as a very, in him having a lot of confidence in who he is. He's very sure of himself as Anishinaabe, as an Ojibwe person. And I want him to always feel that throughout his life. I don't want that to ever be a question for him. So I think language is just such a powerful, powerful piece of that, powerful piece of our culture, our identity, and just how we can move through the world. And for children, as they grow and develop their own skills and ability to communicate, multiple languages are just always a good thing. It's always a positive thing to include in their lives.
Yeah, definitely. We always wonder, and I'm going to ask you, the long-term impacts when children grow up without seeing themselves reflected in stories, TV, or education for that matter. And I know as a former teacher, we really had to dig deep to find any kind of history, real history out there about our people here in the United States and Minnesota, all over Turtle Island.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I even encountered that. It's very much still a problem in teaching. I stepped out of the classroom only 3 years ago. And in that time, in the school I was in, I had to ask teachers consistently, hey, what are you doing for your Indigenous content? Because now it's a state standard. So do you have things you're using? What are your resources? Do you need help finding them? Many of them, I talked to either didn't have any, didn't know where to look for any, or were completely dismissive of the subject matter, even as an important part of the education for the students there. And it turned out that the school I was in had an entire library full of books like fiction and nonfiction, history, contemporary stories, all by Native authors or having some Native subject matter. And it was just really disheartening that we had this great resource in a school and so few of the teachers there even knew anything about it. So it's really, I mean, it's such a big part of building up a person. Like, I don't even want to say a child, but a person, is showing them people like them, allowing them to feel confident in, like, hey, look, oh, I see myself here. And seeing yourself in situations allows you to imagine things for yourself. It allows you to see, like, oh, if I'm seeing this character or this person in this role, even if it's fictional, I can imagine myself there. That's something that's open to me. And if you never do, and if you're told constantly, oh, these are people who are different than you, and they're the ones who are doing, you know, X, Y, and Z. They're the ones who are becoming elected officials, becoming super successful business people, becoming professional athletes, you know, all these high-level things that people aspire to. That really builds in a person a lack of confidence in, like, so maybe that's something that I just can't do. I'm just not someone who's able to do that. So that's a big reason I'm such a believer in the importance of representation. We need to have so much more media showing people of color, and specifically for Native people, showing Native people. And I think being as specific as possible, I try to, in my works, if I have Native character, or when I have Native characters, because everything I write has Native characters in it, I'm very specific with, like, this person is Ojibwe, or this person is Ho-Chunk or Dakota, or they're mixed between, you know, Ponca and Dakota, or something like that. Because I want it to be like, you're not just, oh, this is a Native person. It's like, we are diverse and we are unique, and we need to celebrate that. So I want people to be able to see themselves in all of our complexity and all of our beauty that we have as peoples.
Yeah, definitely. You know, you've worked in Indian education and immersion settings. You know, what are some of the most powerful moments you've witnessed with when kids engage in their culture through storytelling and language? Give us some examples and some powerful moments.
Boy, you know, one thing that comes to mind actually is from the COVID lockdown. There was a lot of online language tables happening at the time, and some of them have continued, which is really cool. But the one I was part of, at one point we had a family coming on, and I wish I could think of their names, but they were committed very strongly to raising their child Ojibwe first, Ojibwe Moeneta, only Ojibwe, just completely immersed. And this little boy was on the call with us, on the Zoom call, and he couldn't have been more than, I don't know, maybe 6 or 7 years old. And we were speaking to him only in Ojibwe, and he was responding completely in Ojibwe, which was so, so amazing and impressive to see. And it was just cutesy stuff, like, it's like, oh, Giamwana, Wishko Bukwajiganins. It's like, oh, did you have some cookies today? It's like, oh, get never went on Apachigo, Wishko Bukwajiganins. It's like, oh yeah, I really like to eat cookies. Like, you know, it's just silly kid stuff like that. So just having those, like, normal kid conversations, but keeping them in Ojibwe was such a powerful moment. I got to be a substitute teacher in the Masabekong immersion school in Duluth for a while. And just stepping into that classroom and hearing Ojibwe every day, and the children talking to each other in Ojibwe. And it was, you know, sometimes the children come in and they're still English dominant, you know, they still use English sometimes, but that they know always that what you're saying to them in Ojibwe. And then they do start to, you kind of see them start to gradually pick up more and then use it with each other. That was always just a powerful thing to see, because children learn best the language of their peers. It's one thing to have their parents and their teachers teaching them, and that's hugely important. But if their peers are using the language, that's when you're really seeing language growth and development in them. So I got to see that a little bit there, and that was just beautiful. So I think we're going to see more and more of that as immersion schools and opportunities grow and develop. And it's just really exciting to watch.
That's awesome. You know, we only got a couple minutes here, but, you know, we talk about games a lot here too, and talk about the importance of learning. And, you know, along with the games that we play and the cultural activities that, you know, help our kids, you know, have their identity in meaningful ways.
Yeah, so I'll focus on lacrosse with this one because I grew up playing modern lacrosse as one of the very few connections I had to Ojibwe culture at the time. And then I shifted into our traditional form of the game. And I got to teach that when I was a PE teacher. And I had a number of Native students, and I really emphasized, this game has such importance to Indigenous cultures from this area. And I had a student who was also from Bois Forte in there, and she really connected to it. And at one point, her skills grew so much that she was teaching the other students how to use a stick, how to throw a ball. And she would say to them, yeah, this is my culture. This is where we come from. And that was so powerful to me to see, like, she was connected to this. And I think one of the things that's powerful about our games, and especially something that's like a team sport like Bagadawewen or Chabna or Kapi Stop, I always forget the Dakota. Kapi's Chopnik. I'm saying it wrong, I know. I'll think of it later, I'm sure. But it's ours. We love basketball, of course. Baseball can be a lot of fun. Football can be a lot of fun. But ultimately, these are things that were imposed on our communities. And this is something that's completely of our communities. And that does a lot for a student to be able to participate in something that's so foundational to a person as sport and game, and knowing this is of us. And that goes a long way for a person's well-being, good medicine, physical wellness, and personal identity.
Hey, we got just a few more seconds. How can people find out more about your book and learn more about your work?
Yeah, so you can follow me on Instagram at Nicholas_DeShaw. I'm also on TikTok at Mishtadim. I do language stuff, and I'll have a new website soon, nicholasdeshaw.com.
Wow, really interesting. Good talk. Really great work you're doing. I really appreciate you coming on Native Roots Radio.
Hey, miigwech, pinagigi, and I'm sure I'll be seeing you around the community, Robert.
Right on. Great. Hey, this is Native Roots Radio.
Thanks for listening to the Little Moments Count radio podcast in partnership with community radio stations throughout Minnesota. You can find the Little Moments Count radio podcast wherever you get your podcasts and at littlemomentscount.org/podcast.